Hey, good evening. Happy New Year's, everyone. Welcome to our first 2022 Scary Creeptastic podcast episode. I am your host, Cameron Wilson, with my good friend Scott Campbell. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm excited to do our first episode for the new year. Did you have a good holiday?
I did. How about you?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Spending time with family and friends is always a good thing. Pat's kind of lost 3 out of 4 the last, couple of weeks. We can talk about that later, of course. But right now, you're looking healthy. I'm feeling healthy, and we're ready for our new and better things for 2022. So I'll get us started off here.
And we
What
got
are you
some
going to
new
do today?
and we got some new scares for our fan base, and I'm doing the Devil's Bible, which is also known as the Codex Gigas.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm ready to be educated tonight because I'm excited to hear that. I'm actually going to do something that I've recently learned about, and I used to live in the community nearby, the Connecticut Serpent. Just to start off with it's pretty ironic because I'm assuming you heard the Connecticut River.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's that long border river between New Hampshire and Vermont. It goes through Mass and empties out at the Long Island Sound, and actually supplies 70% of the fresh water in the Long Island Sound. And being 406 miles, obviously there is a lot of wildlife and things you could see in this river. So just to get it started off with, the Connecticut Serpent was actually believed to be seen before the 1800s, way before settlers ever came. People have always talked about seeing weird stuff, serpents, and just things along that river. And in fact, actually, the New York Times and Science America published articles in the 1800s as well as the 1900s about the Connecticut Serpent. And like I said before, there have been a lot of people, legends, myths, people, sailors saying they've been seeing stuff in this river. And there's only been really two detailed accounts in terms of encounters with this serpent. And the first one was actually September 8th, 1886, by Colonel Stocking and Salas Sage. They were actually on a small boat crossing the Connecticut River at around 6 a.m. And they actually believed to bump into what appears to be, by their accounts, a sea serpent that was roughly 100 feet long. When its head stuck out of the water, it was about 10 feet high, had so much power. It actually knocked the boat a few times up and down when they went up in the air. There are eyewitness accounts. So yeah, they claimed that it was a big, scary looking black head, and it went on for a little while. So I guess it flung their boat for a little bit, or just a little distance. They came down back to the surface. And then once they went to the surface of Carmwell, Connecticut, they actually started telling people about their encounters and what they saw. And they actually got a search party together and started searching the whole area of Carmwell. And shortly after, some people that are skeptical of Colonel Stocking's story, they're actually rewarded with it because they actually saw the serpent themselves. Roughly, it was believed to be about anywhere from 60 to 80 people. And a lot of people started saying they actually thought the serpent was close to 15 feet as opposed to the 10 feet in terms of the head that the colonel previously said. But nonetheless, they all saw it. And then from there, the legend even took off even more. Nobody's seen it really for a while after that, but sailors are still sort of going to the river calmly, trying to patrol it. There was a ransom and reward for it. And overall, people were really just trying to look for this thing and kill it, research it, whatever they were looking for it. From there, it took a four-year break, and until 1894, it was spotted by Austin Rice, who was actually a farmer in East Deerfield, Massachusetts. And he lived in the banks of the Connecticut River, and he actually saw when he was just walking on the banks. And he claimed that he heard a loud splashing one day. He turned, he looked, and he saw what looked to be about similar 15 feet head out of the water of this big serpent-looking creature. He observed it, being from a distance, noticed it was starting to go up river a little bit, and he kind of just followed it, tried to observe it, and then realized once it started to notice him, it started to get a little bit more violent splash, and then it really started to accelerate speed and swim further upstream, passing a few boats, and other more eyewitnesses, and then from there, that was another detailed account. From there have been other sightings of the Connecticut Serpent, but none is really as detailed or in terms of the encounters of these two gentlemen that I described. It's actually coined with a nickname called Connie, or short for Connecticut. That's what a lot of people refer to the Connecticut Serpent. And a lot of people feel that the Connecticut Serpent, actually, if you go towards Hartford, Connecticut, which is the capital of Connecticut, it hangs out near the Hog River Tunnel. And other people believe that there was actually a population of serpents off the coast of New England, and that a lot of times when you see these Connecticut serpents swimming in, that they're only coming in for anywhere from like 2 to 7 year periods at a time. So yeah, it's pretty interesting tale, just because, like I said, given how big this river is, it starts like up by the border of Quebec, Canada, empties out in the Long Island down of New York. Figured it'd be probably like even more eyewitness accounts coming from, at least from the New York side of things. It's definitely, like I said, it's serpents is not. I'm more into learning about Sasquatches and humanoid creatures, and in terms of serpents, I've looked into the ones off the coast of Gloucester, as well as the ones off the Pasco Bay of Maine. But the Connecticut River monster was something I never actually heard of, and I used to live in Springfield, which is one of the largest communities along the Connecticut River, and the Connecticut River goes right through there. Given how big and flux this river is, I'm assuming there probably is some type of garfish or other big types of species that live and roam in these rivers, like being anywhere from 400 miles from starting from the Quebec border and just emptying out in the Atlantic. Did you ever hear of this creature?
No. Has there ever been a description, like a pictured description of it, or?
So yeah, most of the times they say that the head is anywhere from 10 to 15 feet, at least on those two eyewitness accounts. Colonel Stockings actually described it looking black, of course, but I wanted to say the other gentleman, Austin Rice, who was a farmer who saw it, he actually didn't really give it color, but nonetheless gave it the size, the way I was flashing. But yeah, that they all claim that it's about over 100 feet long in terms of length. But when its head sticks out of the water, its head's anywhere from 10, 15 feet high. So does
it look anything like Loch Ness Monster, or is it more like?
I think it's more like a sea giant, like an eel or a snake.
Oh, okay.
That type of species.
Interesting. I never heard of that. That's an interesting. And it's right, it's right in our state, so it's actually quite interesting.
Goes through 4 states actually, New Hampshire, Vermont. So, and then, I never heard of it either. And like I said, I used to live in Connecticut, and of course, like yourself, I love learning about horror genre and just all things folklore, whether it's Northeast, New England, colonial America, and even world. But this is something that I thought was something fascinating I wanted to talk about, and share and discuss, because like I said, the ones that are more famous are like the serpents off the coast of Gloucester. That was like the first serpent ever really seen. Of course, the world's most famous ones, the Loch Ness. Everybody heard Champ, who I've done before, who is up in my neck of the woods, upstate New York. But in terms of Connie, though, like I said, it's been a while since anybody's seen Connie, but yeah, hopefully someday I'll run in with her. But the Connecticut River is pretty filthy in the parts that I floated on, so I don't think any serpent.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. It's amazing because it's a saltwater river, which I think most of them probably are. It probably comes from the ocean.
Well, that was one of the theories, because they say that some people believe that there's a species of serpents that live off the coast of New England, and every 2 to 7 years they come into our river systems, whether through the mills or whatever, underground channels, for the fresh water for like anywhere from 2 to 7 years at a time. That's what some people theorize and believe, which is pretty interesting.
It's funny you mentioned saltwater to freshwater, because there is a a breed of shark that does come in from saltwater to freshwater. They can live in freshwater, and they've been known to swim up the Mississippi River all the way up as far as Illinois. And that's the bull shark. The bull shark can actually live in fresh water, so I wouldn't doubt it if this other creature can do the same.
That's yeah, no, because like the closest I think I've heard of that was the episode of South Park where they mentioned a bull shark at a camp episode. So that's
yeah, bull sharks can live in fresh water. They can swim up the Mississippi River.
Wow, I'm sure that must have been this way when they were first spotted for the first time, or at least they don't believe to be. So that's pretty interesting. That's awesome. It's good to know. We're sitting here teaching people. We're talking about myths and legends, but we're going to also talk about stuff that's proven based on science and discovered and recognized by everybody. A lot of scholars. So you're going to do the Devil's Bible now, or
the Devil's Bible? Now, this thing is okay. For first mentioning it to somebody, they would think that this is all about Satanism, and it really isn't. It's kind of a weird book. It's not like the original Bible that you and I think when we know the Bible. This is really it's a weird book. Let me get into it, and you'll find out. It was written in the 13th century by a Benedictine monk, and the book is actually quite huge. It's 36 inches long, and it weighs 165 pounds.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah, and now the book is the story behind the book, and I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. But it's actually the book is very illustrated. It's got a lot of unique and ornate illustrations. The word Codex Gigas in Latin means just large book. And the reason it is so intricate, because on one of the pages, it is unusual for that time frame, that era, the 13th century. It's got a full-page portrait of Satan, and the full-page portrait of Satan is quite terrifying. Now, back in the 13th century, there was a lot of portraits of Satan put out, but nothing this terrifying, and nothing with this intricate detail. So now let me get into the story of how the Benedictine monk, I'm not sure of his name. Let me see if I can find his name here. Okay, Herman the Recluse was the guy's name who wrote it. Got into some trouble somehow, and he was penalized by the monks of his whatever he was living in at the time. And he was punished for life. I guess he was. Now he was supposed to. In order, he had asked the head of his group, instead of being punished, if I write a book and have it finished in 24 hours, will I be able to get out of punishment? And the guy said, yeah, sure. You're not going to be able to write a full book in 24 hours. I mean, nobody can do that. Well, somehow, some way, he did. And supposedly, the story goes is that he went in a room, was locked in there for 24 hours. He comes out, and the Devil's Bible was written. They claim, supposedly, that he had help from Satan, that he sold his soul to the devil, and the devil helped him write this book. Now, this book isn't about Satanism. It's got like certain spells in it. It's got stuff about potions. It's got stuff about herbs. It's got stuff about certain other things, but it's definitely not about what people would think when they think of the common Satanism, like sacrifices and exorcisms. And you think it would be, considering it's about Satan, but it's really not. It's more of about the earth. The book is extremely huge, and there are pages missing from it, which tend to tell me that maybe those pages that are missing were at one time could have been maybe the pages that they didn't want people to see, and they were ripped out for a reason.
It makes sense because.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
No. It's just your story. No, I was just going to say it does make sense because words of power are a real thing, and if you're telling me that there's missing pages with something that in terms of perception, some people would associate the devil with heavy dark magic, that would absolutely make sense. But no, sorry, no, I didn't mean to break your flow. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's in the Czech Republic, the book. You can actually go there and see it. It's inside of a glass case. The devil, and part of the story goes that the devil asked Herman the Recluse to draw a picture of him as kind of like a gratitude for him helping write the book, is how the story goes. The book is made of lambskin. Every single page is all made of lambskin. So picture a book 3 feet long, 165 pounds, and it took him 1 day to write it. Can you tell me how that could be possible?
Given the scope of that concept, it would be pretty tough because back, you're talking 1400s when this happened? Yeah, you're talking maybe 20 to 50% of the population knew how to read, let alone, be proficient enough to, I don't want to say like mass produce a book. Well, not mass produce it, but I mean, how many? It's probably I'm assuming a few hundred pages. I'm guessing it's smaller than the Holy Bible, of course. But I'll be guessing this thing is pretty thick too, though, in terms of content and literature.
Why the book is? It says here that it's 36 inches long. It's the largest known medieval manuscript, weighing 165 pounds. It says here that it's 36 inches long and 20 inches wide, and 8 inches thick.
Oh, okay. Well, pretty big book nonetheless, though.
Yeah, and it's claimed to be made of it's skin of 160 donkeys, not lambskin. So you picture, and you're gonna see the illustrations. It's like they were done in a factory. I mean, these illustrations are completely like. Experts say that these illustrations would take somebody writing it from beginning to end, probably 30 years to write this book. From beginning to end, with the way that the writing is, how like they wrote back then, like with I don't know if you call it cursive writing or if you call it like
I'm aware because well, animal skin was used in terms of powerful rituals, especially sheepskin, lambskin, especially I never heard of I believe in terms of donkey skin being different on an orthodox animal, but typically in terms of spells, rituals, hexes, whatever, writing on animal skin was the preferred method in terms of believing that your process situation was going to come to fruition.
Yeah, and it's the writing is so, like, the S's are a huge capital, like the letters are capital, and then you got smaller letters, but they're just so neat and organized. And for someone to take 24 hours to do this, it's amazing. Beyond, I mean, you gotta look it up. You'll be so impressed by the intricacy of this book that it's phenomenal how it intrigues me, but it's terrifying to know that this book could actually have been written and that it exists. And there's actually a funny story behind it, that back in the Middle Ages, after this book was during the 100 Years' War, or the 30 Years' War, they say the 100 Years' War. But anyways, one of the wars, the book was thrown out the window, and it weighed so much it landed on someone and killed him.
Yeah, well, I mean, weighing 160 odd pounds, that's yeah. I mean, a lot of people can't even lift that. So we're gonna stress that.
But yeah, you gotta see the devil illustration. It is just so, to me, it's creepy. It's not something that I would think of when I think of the devil, but anyways, it's a pretty amazing book. Not something I ever want to see, and I take back what I said. It's actually in Stockholm, Sweden, not the Czech Republic. So if you're ever in Stockholm, Sweden, and you want to go see it, it's in a big glass case. You can go see it. It's open, and it actually shows the picture of the devil. That's the part that's open, and you can go there and get pictures of it or whatever. I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm not, that's up to you.
I've been in a lot of hallucinogenic and magical shops where they have very, expensive books kind of secured on an interesting counter. So yeah, I can only imagine the security and the authenticity of how this thing is kept and preserved for the most part. I
wouldn't chance it. I'm kind of scared about, I wouldn't want to touch it. I'm very religious like that. I wouldn't want to touch something of that, with that history behind it. But looking at it, probably wouldn't do any harm. But then again, I saw the picture and it is pretty creepy, so it might give me nightmares. But anyways, that someone else, by all means, go have at it.
It's all good.
But yeah, go take a look at the picture, man. I'm telling you, you will be, you will say, wow, that's very intricate for that. A lot more intricate than even today's standard. I mean, they wrote books back then. They really, it's amazing how they wrote books back in the, medieval times. And, today it's just simple, basic writing. But back then, they really, they used those pens with the, you dip them in the, or feathers or whatever it was, and amazing.
I do what you got, right? You gotta part of the evolution process too, in terms of from feathers to wooden to ink to lead. So
yep.
So you ready to get into some football now?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, it's been a little bit since we've done a recent game, but of course with NFL playoffs are starting actually this week. So no better time to really talk about the Patriots. Or in terms of football in general. Last night, the college football championship happened with Georgia beating Alabama, I believe 33-18. It was a pretty good game. I'm not sure if you saw it. Did you see that game last night?
I didn't. So is Georgia now the champion?
Oh yes, no, they are. I'll spend a quick second on it, but yeah, no, they are the national champions for the first time, I believe, in 41 years. Typically, a lot of teams have been winning that national championship in college, coming out of the Southeastern Conference or Ohio State. The main thing is, though, is in terms of, if you saw the game last night, you saw at least 15 players that are going to be playing on the NFL in the next year or two. So it was, in terms of, if you're a football fan in general, because whatever the kids that are playing last night, it's going to be a huge addition to whatever NFL teams they go to next year. And who knows, maybe the Pats always are getting guys from Alabama and Georgia. So whether it's Sony Michel, Damian Harris, Mac Jones, Christian Barmore, we have quite a few guys from Alabama and Georgia, as well as Isaiah Wynn, but he's kind of gross. But now, in terms of getting back into the Patriots and our NFL hometown team, they're playing the Bills this Saturday at 8:00 at Buffalo. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Pats fan. I'm always gonna take them. I'm always gonna root for them. But in terms of how they look, in terms of the last 4 games, they haven't really played their best football, and they're playing a division opponent that they lost what? They lost 3 out of 4. They've been beating the Bills for the last 20 years, but we've been losing 3 out of 4 of the last 4. So it's weird. Like, as a Patriots fan, you're used to beating the Bills, but when you saw the team play on Saturday against the Dolphins and lackadaisy, they can't go like that against the Bills. So it's really bizarre. Mac Jones can't start off slow. He does look like he hit the rookie wall. He just wants the season to be over, which is understandable. The most amount of games this kid played in 1 year was like 12. He's already at 17. And the NFL, it is a bruise and hit on the body.
I would, I said to a friend last week, I said I would rather see them play like Cincy or a team like that, or like Pittsburgh or something, than friggin' Buffalo. I'm like, oh, fantastic. Now a team that, we beat the first time just barely, and the second time they kind of handed it to us, and now we got to go to Buffalo and play them. Hopefully we'll beat them and eliminate them in their hometown, but we'll see what happens. Who got the number 1 seed? The AFC was it Kansas City?
Yep, it was Kansas City. And then
in the NFC, I know it was.
Tennessee got the number 1 seed, and then Kansas City got the number 2 seed. Since he has 3, Bill got 4.
I know in the NFC it was the Packers. They were good. They had a good team.
Yep, and then Tom Brady has number 2 seed. I think he's playing the Eagles. We should win that game, but the Bucs haven't looked like the Bucs from last year. But we'll see how that. They're in the playoffs, though. They're in the playoffs.
Yeah,
you're right, but they're here, and honestly, like the Jets stake and Tampa Bay barely beat them out like 2 weeks ago. They needed a Tom Brady Hail Mary, which, for 20 years we were grateful to have him do that for us. It's tough watching him do it somewhere else.
Who do the Rams play this week?
Rams play not Arizona. That's the wild card team. I'm not sure, actually. I haven't really followed the NFC.
They're gonna be a tough team.
Maybe 49ers? I don't know. I don't think 49ers made it. Because, Eagles have a playoff spot. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I've been mostly focused on the Pats and dialed in. A little bit of the college landscape. But
I'm surprised Pittsburgh made it through. I really am. They looked like crap the last certain times of the year. They got lucky, and God love Ben Roethlisberger. This is his last year. He's retiring. I hope he goes far. I don't think they will, just because they don't have the team that they used to have. But hopefully they'll do a little something.
Well, I've always been a big fan of Mike Tomlin. I don't think he's as good as Coach Belichick, obviously, but he's an entertaining guy. He's been there for 15 years. Only had 1 losing record, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Nonetheless, Big Ben, though, he probably should have retired like 2 years ago. He looks gashed. Obviously, I won that Baltimore game. like Baltimore was playing with an undrafted quarterback who Tyrone Huntley's pretty good, but Lamar Jackson was playing. Well, Pittsburgh probably loses that game. Quite honestly, if John Harbaugh didn't go for like 2 for the amount of times that he did, Baltimore would be in the playoffs over Pittsburgh, or heck, even Los Angeles Chargers. Their coach, the game against Kansas City, he went for a 4th down for I think 4 or 5 times and only converted once, and then tried to go for 2-point conversion at least 3 to 4 times, and kept missing them. And you're starting to see that analytics is really starting to get into football, because 2 teams that would have been in the playoffs, Baltimore and Los Angeles, if they just did the regular field goals with the conservative traditional approach, they'd be in the playoffs right now. But they lost, like I said, they lost a lot of their games by constantly trying to chase that 2-point conversion. It's so bad to the point that even Mike Tomlin called them out for doing it in a game back in week 8 or week 9 when Pittsburgh scored, and then Baltimore scored less than a minute later. But instead of tying it up, they decided to go for 2 to win in regulation, which that method worked for them against Kansas City early in the year. But there's a reason why the 2-point conversions moved up much quicker than the extra point. But yeah, no, it's just awakening that we're seeing with not awakening, but the analytics, done so much in baseball. You see what we're doing in football, but analytics backfire on certain coaches, because right now those are 2 teams that should be in the playoffs that aren't, because they decided to follow analytics.
What do you think about Brian Flores being fired? They had a pretty good year.
No, they did, and it's really bizarre because Brian Flores too. The Dolphins haven't had back-to-winning seasons in over 20 years. So the last time they had back winning seasons was Dave Marino was there, and I believe that was 98. His last year there, I don't think they were winning, but nonetheless, it's weird because you see they play hard for him. The 2018 Super Bowl, he wasn't the defensive coordinator by title, but he had the name, and he looked fine, and he looked well, and you could tell the team played for him. Had a hot start in his first year at Miami. They had a horrible roster, but they played tough for him. Knocked the Pats out of the number 2 seed, out of the first round bye. And then the following year, they followed up with the first-time winning year, and that's what going back and forth between Tua and Fitzpatrick. And this year, he's able to keep Tua on a straight path with all the distractions and rumors. I don't think the Dolphins know what they're doing. It's really hard to, I don't know where to think they're going, because, like I said, they haven't had back-to-back winning seasons in 20 years. And then you fire the first guy that gets you there. What do you think about that?
Do you think Josh McDaniels going to leave, or is he going to stay as offensive coordinator?
Probably depends what type of job opens up. This year, I'd say normally when most NFL jobs open up, it's always something obviously there's always an issue for a reason for the team firing somebody. But this year so far, all the jobs that are open, there's at least a decent quarterback attached and some talent on the team. What if it's Jacksonville Jaguars? You're going to have Trevor Lawrence, or what's another team? I'm trying to. Well, Raiders, I think they have an interim coach, so I'm not sure. I think they fired up. I think they're probably going to go in a different direction. The New York Giants, actually, they just fired Joe Judge, Patriots special teams coordinator from 2 years ago, but he was kind of arrogant. Depending on the job that opens up, Denver, Chicago, Minnesota,
Detroit.
Detroit's open right now, and I think they actually like Jason Campbell or Dan Campbell, whatever his name is. But anyways, back to Josh McDaniels. If he leaves, it's probably going to have to be with a job that has a quarterback that he can work and build around, show that, hey, this is what I did with Tom Brady, this is what I did with Mac Jones. Heck, I had Cam Newton for a year and I got a little bit out of him. I doubt he's going to go to the New York Giants, because I doubt they're going to go back to the Bill Parcells tree after firing Joe Judge. I don't know. I could see him going to Minnesota because there is talent there, but I doubt he would have, I don't know, Kirk Cousins, I think. I'm a little bit worried. Hopefully Mac Jones will be beyond Kirk Cousins. But Kirk Cousins and he had an actually good year this year. But, yeah, Chicago's an interesting job. I'm not sure if Josh McDaniels has been interviewing, Because I think so far, Gerard Mayo is the only Patriots coordinator that's been requested to be interviewed. If that's correct.
Yeah, I don't think he will. I think he's happy where he is. Because maybe when I think Belichick may have promised him his position once.
It's not the Belichick, though. That'd be up to Kraft.
No, but I think maybe that was the deal, the whole deal thing. The reason why McDaniel left to go back. Remember that job he had with Indianapolis? And he
Yeah.
to go back.
In hindsight, he was right to leave it because he only had Andrew Luck for 1 year. Then he retired. Phil Rivers comes in, and then he retires. And then Carson Wentz, who, they beat the Patriots on the Saturday Night Football game coming out of the bye. Carson Wentz actually had an up and down year in terms of the last, even against that win against the Patriots he had, his numbers were awful. It was like 5 for 11 or something. And like, look, outside of that, if Carson Wentz only plays like that, the opposing team normally wins. So that makes that situation even a little bit more unusual. But in terms, I agree with you in some ways. Like I said, there's only a handful of jobs that would be willing to be open off of Josh. Like, he's not going to take the Denver job, and that one's open. They're not going to go through that again. I doubt the Giants will offer him, because I think there's about 7 or 8 jobs right now. All of them seem to have talent on them, though. But obviously the Dolphins are the most shocking one.
Why would you want the Jacksonville job? They stink.
Trevor Lawrence, though.
Trevor
Lawrence, that quarterback, he's going to be good, man. He was supposed to be the best quarterback prospect after Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. And
I hope so.
Well, that's the only reason why it's worth taking the job, because outside of that, like, the only other good reasons are what? Florida has no income tax, and you're in Florida. But that's about it. Nobody likes, people live in Jacksonville. In some ways, Jacksonville is the Buffalo, Florida, though. Like,
they're horrible. They are so bad. I read a stat before we go. I read a stat where they said predictions for the next season, and they were all joking about how Jimmy Garoppolo could be traded to Detroit. And I said, imagine that, like, Jimmy Garoppolo, of all friggin' people, he didn't want to come to the Pats during when they were saying that they were trying to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Then he ends up going to one of the worst teams in the NFL. He's probably kicking himself in the ass going, I should have went to the Patriots, man. Now I have to go to Detroit.
Well, I think part of that, too, was Bill wanted him to redo his contract and take less money. And I think Garoppolo just didn't want to do it, And I don't blame him on that sense because, Garoppolo is not Tom Brady, but he is good in his own right. He sat on the bench for 2 Super Bowls and got 2 rings. He led another team to Super Bowl under his own merit. Should have won that Super Bowl. One deep pass to Emmanuel Sanders short of winning that game. But nonetheless, and he was, when we traded him, after six games, he did get the largest. He got like a 5-year, $37 million NFL contract, which was the largest at that time. And Jimmy Garoppolo, he's good, slightly above average, brittle at times. Sometimes he does suck, and he is good and better than the average NFL quarterback. But he's not going to get the type of money they just got from this recent contract. So that's why I don't blame him for not coming back.
Yeah, he'll go to Detroit and then they'll suck, and then he'll just.
He might be besides Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers, he's probably the best coveted quarterback in the free agent. Who else is coveted that's a free agent that's a quarterback?
Oh, Aaron Rodgers is a free agent?
He's not a free agent, but I remember last year the whole thing going on with Green Bay, and then they said, oh, well, we'll try to trade you this year. Outside of those two, and honestly, he might even stay in Green Bay because #1 seed.
They still have Jordan Love, too.
Yeah, but did you see him play in that Chiefs game?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, if he did, then you wouldn't be excited for Jordan Love. I can tell you that right now. Don't get me wrong.
They might trade Jordan Love and try to get another draft pick, or try to get another quarterback. Who knows?
Somebody will kick a tire on him just because first-round pick, pedigree first-round pick. But like I said, Jimmy Garoppolo is essentially the most coveted quarterback at the moment. There's a couple other. I mean, Fitzpatrick's probably available. I think Mariota's available possibly.
Yeah.
But in terms of Derek Carr might be, I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
like I said, Garoppolo's probably going to be, the most available depending on what Kyle Shanahan plans to do. But who knows? If Garoppolo goes on a crazy Super Bowl run, do they still go to Trey Lance next year? Like, what?
Yeah, that's true. Well, that'll do it for another episode of Scary Creeptastic Podcast. Catch us next time. We'll have some more NFL updates and some more scary stories. But for now, we are your hosts. I am Scott, alongside of Cam. Stay true to yourselves, and Cam, let's go Patriots.
Oh yeah. Stay warm, everyone.
See you later.
Oh, good night.
Are you still there?